Okay, so have you ever wondered what would happen if, like, the devil just decided Moscow was the place to be?
Interesting.
Not for the sights or anything, but to really, like, shine a light on what was going on in Soviet society back in the 30s. Well, that's what Mikhail Bulgakov's The Master and Margarita is all about.
Wow.
This book, it's got a bit of everything: satire, fantasy, romance, even some philosophy all mixed into one.
It's quite the mix.
Totally. We're really diving deep into it today.
Yeah, one of the things I love most about The Master and Margarita is how much it still makes you think. Even now, it's not stuck in the past.
Yeah.
It's about good and evil, what's okay to say and what's not. And of course, the power of love and art, things that are still so important.
Exactly. It's timeless in a way. So, should we talk about the devil a bit?
Sure.
He goes by Woland in the book.
Okay.
And get this, he doesn't travel alone. He brings a whole entourage. And one of them is a cat named Behemoth.
A cat?
Oh, yeah. And this is no ordinary cat. This one packs heat and loves his vodka.
You're kidding.
I know, right? Makes you want to pick up the book just to meet this cat.
I can see why.
But Woland's not in Moscow for the fun of it, though. He's there to, like, peel back the layers of Soviet society and expose what's underneath.
It's like Bulgakov is using Woland to really dig into what he saw as the problems of his time. The greed, the corruption, people just blindly following ideology without thinking. It's all there, right on the surface.
It's all about satire, right?
Right. And he does it so well. Remember that scene with the magic show?
Oh, man, you mean the one where money starts raining from the sky and everyone goes crazy trying to grab it? It's messed up, but you can't look away.
Exactly. It's like he's holding up a mirror to human nature and saying, look, this is what happens. You give people a little taste of wealth, status, and they lose all control.
It's like that saying, the devil doesn't make you do it, he just gives you the opportunity.
Exactly.
Okay, but there's another side to the book, too. It's not all devilish fun and games, right? We've got the Master and Margarita's love story woven throughout.
Ah, yes, the master. A writer struggling in a system that wants to control what he can and can't say. Sounds familiar.
Especially with his novel about Pontius Pilate, right? You can't help but feel like that's Bulgakov talking about his own experiences with censorship.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
And Master's struggle to get his novel out there, it's like this symbol of how dangerous it can be to silence artists, to try and control what people think.
And then there's Margarita, strong, determined, definitely not your typical damsel in distress.
Not at all. She goes to extraordinary lengths when the master disappears.
She makes a deal with the devil himself, can you imagine? Talk about going above and beyond for love.
Right. It really makes you think about how much control we have over our own destiny, especially in a system that feels designed to keep you down. And she's a woman in a time when women often didn't have that kind of power in stories.
That's so true. She chooses to make a deal with the devil to get what she wants. And she even gets a little revenge along the way. Did you see that coming?
Oh yeah, Bulgakov's women, they're a force to be reckoned with. But it makes you think, doesn't it, about love, sacrifice, and where we draw the line.
It's a big question, right? How far would any of us go for love?
Absolutely. And what's fascinating is that Bulgakov doesn't give us any easy answers. He leaves us to ponder those questions ourselves.
Which is what makes it so good.
It really makes you wonder what he would have done if he could have written whatever he wanted.
It's like he's saying, yeah, the devil's in Moscow, but look around. Is that really so hard to believe?
Right. It's almost like Bulgakov is saying life itself is pretty unbelievable, especially under this kind of regime.
And don't even get me started on the Master's novel about Pontius Pilate. A story within a story. How clever is that?
Oh, it's brilliant. Bulgakov is drawing a parallel there. He's saying, look at Pilate in Roman Judea. He couldn't speak out against the powers that be either. And artists under Soviet rule, they're in the same boat.
So when the Master gets arrested because of his novel, that's Bulgakov's way of saying, hey, this is what happens when you try to control what people can say and think.
Absolutely. It's like everyone's washing their hands of responsibility, just like Pilate did.
Wow. It really gets you thinking about how these themes are still relevant, right? People wanting power, others fighting for freedom, and staying true to yourself when everyone's telling you to just go with the flow.
That's why this book is still so powerful. It's not just about Soviet society. It's about the human experience no matter where or when you live.
Exactly. That's probably why it still resonates with readers all these years later.
Absolutely. Even in the darkest times, there's still beauty, love, and the courage to stand up for what you believe in.
And Margarita, she embodies that courage, doesn't she? I mean, she goes as far as making a deal with the devil. It makes you think, how far would you go? What would you be willing to do for love?
She turns the whole idea on its head. It's like
Mhm.
she's saying, if they're not going to play fair, then I'm going to rewrite the rules.
Which is kind of what Bulgakov did with this book, right? He couldn't criticize the Soviet system outright, so he created this whole other world, this crazy, fantastical world where the devil comes to town.
It's genius, really. And incredibly brave considering what could have happened to him if he pushed too far.
And to think this book that got banned is now considered a classic. Talk about the power of art.
It just goes to show you can't silence a good story.
I mean, talk about taking a risk, right? Writing something like this when Stalin was in power.
Pretty mind-blowing when you think about it.
Yeah.
But that's what I love about this book. It's like he's criticizing a specific time and place, but at the same time, it's a story for everyone.
Totally. It's like, yeah, he's talking about Soviet society, but then you've got these big questions about love, betrayal, freedom, good and evil, things we all deal with.
Exactly. That's why people are still trying to figure it out. There's no one right answer. It hits everyone a little differently.
So as we wrap things up here, any final thoughts for our listeners? Anything you really want them to take away from our deep dive?
That's a good question. I think the biggest thing is to be okay with not having all the answers. Bulgakov, he throws these curveballs, these characters you're not always sure about, tough choices they have to make, and the world itself is kind of a strange place.
He really makes you think.
Right. And sometimes the best books, they don't spell everything out for you. They make you work for it a little. Embrace the mystery.
I like that. Don't be afraid to ask the hard questions and maybe even laugh a little at how absurd it all is.
Exactly. Just like Bulgakov did. If you haven't read The Master and Margarita yet, give it a try. And really pay attention to the details, how he uses symbols, how he mixes the real with the fantastical. I think you'll be surprised.
Couldn't agree more. And on that note, we'll leave you to ponder the mysteries of The Master and Margarita. Until next time, keep those brains buzzing, and remember, sometimes the truth is hiding in plain sight. Or maybe behind a talking cat. Who knows?